In this video, we are going to add a new feature to No Pressure. It's going to be search. Search to be used by end users who are visiting the site, as well as in management when administering the site. We are going to use the feature document to describe what we intend to do, and we are going to follow the process associated with it. This is the second video in a two-part series. The first part describes what the feature document is and why I started to use it. And this second one is a playthrough. So we take the feature development from start to finish and see what comes out. And in this case, we really have to see what comes out because I have no idea how this will work out. The reason is that OpenAI had a very interesting week. And in this week, all the uncertainties that I have been describing in an earlier video seem to have materialized. We had a change in model. We had problems with context window compaction. We had issues with access, lots of outages. So I don't know what's going to happen. I don't know if we can finish the process at all, or OpenAI will still have availability problems. And most interestingly, how the 5.3 version of ChatGPT will behave. This is actually going to be the first time I use it. So let's dive in. This is the story of No Pressure, the AI native tiny little website system. Today's objective is to add search to No Pressure both on the user front end and on the administrative front end. I will start by using ChatGPT directly. The reason is that it's much easier to get general overview of the tools or libraries that are going to be used from ChatGPT than to use Codex or the agent on the command line. At least that's my experience. And it's pretty simple, so let's get started. Please put together a guide for AI assistants to integrate TeeAy into a Rust application. I'm using Voice Inc., which uses Whisper, and I find it a really good tool to interact with the computer. And it's pretty good, but it doesn't always get the spelling right. So let's just make sure that we are calling TeeAy. The Rust application uses Actix if that has any bearing. We store the source data in files with ROL sidecar files, adding some context to those files, including role-based access control fields and titles. I myself don't know how to use TeeAy, so we are going to use ChatGPT to figure out some of these details for us. The guide should include details how to store the indices on disk. It should also have details on how updates can be triggered, data removed from the indices, as well as how to manage memory consumption. Please also include a section on requesting search results and how fields which might be in the ROL sidecar files could be prioritized or used to restrict access. In particular, how a role-based access control mechanism could be implemented so that search results do not include unauthorized content. All right, let's see what comes out of this. Okay, so one thing we can see is that it interpreted my detail that we are using Actix, that it wants to create a whole application that uses Actix. So we might need to adjust that. Right, okay, so that's good. Okay, so this is pretty good. This means that it's already taking into account the role-based access control. Excellent. We're going a bit beyond our capabilities with tenants, so we will have to remove that not to confuse ChatGPT once it gets to read this. Pretty good. Okay, so we don't need file watcher. That's important. So we need to One thing we have to be careful about at this stage is that we don't want to introduce confusing details for ChatGPT, the other codex version. Because if we start adding things like file watcher, it will actually try to design something with file watcher, but we don't want that. So we don't want watcher, we don't want tenants. Good guesses though, I guess, but we are not using those in no pressure. Right, okay, so now we are getting into request flow. Very good. All right, so this is a really good start. So now let's clean this up so that we don't have anything misleading. So doc ID, very good. We have IDs. Path will be alias. Title, good. Body, right. Yes. Okay, so here we need to figure out how do we do this and ideally replicate as little as possible. So let's figure this out. Regarding your section 2 on schema design, I understand that this is going to be the schema used by TeeAy. Is that correct? Are we proposing to replicate, for example, the title? Of course, not the body. How does this work? Right, so now we get to understand a bit better how TeeAy will work, which is great. Okay, so I would like to clean up the guide a bit so that we have alignment with the current structure. We should have the doc ID, but unless it's necessary to call it that, I would like to call it ID because that's just the ID of the objects themselves. We want to have an alias field and not path because the ID identifies the source uniquely. We don't need path to identify it, but we want to be able to search the alias. So the alias should also match. Title, fine. Roles, fine. And we don't need tenant ID and we don't need isPublic or categories or anything like that. What I would like you to do is please also update the rest of the document to remove references of isPublic, remove references for tenant ID, remove references for file watcher. There is already a capability in the system to make file changes. We will integrate to that. Right, okay, so this is shaping up nicely. All right, let's stop here. Sorry, to clarify, the ID is not going to be used as a filter. It will just be used to uniquely identify the object that was matched. Also, before we continue, what sort of file formats does TeeAy support? For example, besides, say, text or Markdown, does it support Word, PDF, anything like that? Now, one point I would make here is that we could just say that integrate TeeAy into the system, and I'm sure that the AI would do that. But what we would get out of it is completely unknown in advance, unless we go through this exercise and ensure that we understand what's going to happen. Okay, so fair enough. So why we need ID to be indexed is to be able to refer to it when we are deleting stuff. Perfectly fine. Right, and then we need to do the ingestion extraction. Okay, that's fair enough. All right, please can you then do the following. give me the updated guide, and also emphasize in there that the text extraction should be done by the ingestion process. I think that for now, given No Pressure is the tiny little website system, we will not integrate any of the PDF or Word extraction capabilities. That's for later. For now, the objective will be to index all the markdown page documents. Okay, so this seems to be pretty good. Okay, so here. Now we will have to remember the memory management because I want to add a configuration parameter for this. Right, now I will remove this so that we are not going to confuse the other ChatGPT that we are going to talk to soon. So let's copy this, and it's Markdown, because Markdown is AI native, and that is why No Pressure is using Markdown as page formats. I created a new branch, search, for this purpose, and we are going to go into docs. Now, in terms of the architecture of No Pressure, we have infrastructure level elements, and search will fall into this in the first instance. But then we will have two directions. So content, which is the content pipeline where whatever the user sees on the front end is delivered. And the other one is, well, admin and management. Management is the AI enabling internal structure that would allow anything, the CLI, the front end, WebSocket, etc., to interact with the domain primitives that build up the management capabilities. And admin is the actual web UI for this purpose. So when we are talking about search, we will have to implement stuff on each of these four elements. So first step is that we want to establish the infrastructure itself. So search will go into infrastructure. So we are going to paste this here, and we are going to remove what we don't want. All right, so now we have created this document, but this is a regular document. This is not a feature document. And it's actually relatively long, but we will work on that. And the way we are going to work on this is that we start codex. Now, this is new, right? It's the version 098, which came out literally days ago. I couldn't download it yesterday, but overnight the automatic update upgraded it to 98 for me. I'm using now the brand new GPT-5.3 codex. I have never used this. I don't know if it's completely crazy or not. We'll see. And then a last important point is that I am using it in YOLO mode, right? So it can do whatever it like. So far, I never had any problems, by the way, with any of the LLMs in terms of going berserk and doing anything bad. So let's hope for the best with this latest version. All right, so we will close this. And what I usually do is I also open a search, a lazy git, because that will give me an indication of what's going on. All right, so let's get codex working. We are going to implement a new feature at the infrastructure level and then integrate that into management and administration as well as the content pipeline. This new feature is going to be search provided by TeeAy. that didn't go through correctly. Under infrastructure, there is an initial guide called search.md. We will take this and convert this into a Caravaggio and likely break this up into smaller pieces. Now, I stop here. I don't call feature documents to the AI. AI doesn't think. It really doesn't think. I mean, even when you see thinking, it's really talking to itself. So AI can only talk. At least the LLMs today can only talk. What happens is that when you have something in the context window, like this whole thing, it's like a big vector, right? And then all that influences what's going on in the rest of the brain. And if I say feature document, it usually wants to create a subdirectory in documents and put it there. That's what it gets to interpret as feature document. It doesn't think like, well, it doesn't think, right? So it doesn't have like concepts as we do, and jargon if we have in an organization, for example. Everyone would understand that the feature document is not a document that goes into the feature directory. It's a certain format. So you and I, we understand it, but there is no way to put this into the head of Codex. Well, there is a way. I mean, we could do fine-tuning or even better post-training, but we're not going to do that with a model like this. So the second best thing is to use a word that is so far removed with this area that it doesn't get confused at all. And Caravaggio is such a beautiful word. I decided to call this format, the feature document format, Caravaggio with AI. So now, what do we want to do? We have to establish the infrastructure. The infrastructure involves setting up the search capability itself. So it's basically a new database. That's definitely one piece. Now, based on the discussion with ChatGPT earlier, what I think is that we want a separate feature document for the ingestion. For now, is just going to be basically sanitizing Markdown documents into pure text. And eventually, we will embellish that to have other document formats available as well. What I will keep in the core is the process, how we interact with the search infrastructure. So updating it, removing things in it, putting new things in it, this sort of level. And then once we have that working, we can build on top the user interaction. So how an end user wants to interact with this and how the administrator will be able to interact with this. One important part that goes into the main Caravaggio, main feature document, is going to be the memory configuration as well. I would like you to create a second Caravaggio document, which is going to be search-ingest.md. This will describe how we will ingest new information into the search database. Please make the conversion of the existing search.md into a Caravaggio and create the search-ingest.md Caravaggio, placing the technical details as needed into each of these documents. For now, do not include a detailed action plan, just a placeholder. And now comes a moment, the first time I press enter to get ChatGPT 5.3 to do anything. Wow. Okay, so that's interesting. It very quickly read the required document. So this is actually really good. README is the top level README. Testing and coding are the two standards documents, and you find them in the repo, right? So you can look them up on GitHub. And I have to say that so far it's pretty fast. It was much slower with 5.2, but the results were pretty good. So let's see. It's quick, like Gemini, but is it better than Gemini? Okay, moving to edits. Okay, so far so good. All right, I will anticipate that something will come out. And while we are waiting, I will just explain that I use Glow generally to display Markdown documents because it's very easy to read. And we can also use the text editor to view them. But let's see what happens. Okay, so please make sure that the status corresponds to the current state, which is to be reviewed. Do not move any Caravaggio into requirement status without my authorization. Now, this actually is a bad sign, to be honest. 5.2 and 5 never created a Caravaggio in requirement stage. The cadence is that it has to be reviewed first, and the LLM has an instruction prohibiting it to execute on action plans in those documents, so that I actually know what it's going to do before it does it. So far, at least we have documents. So let's glow them. Okay. Okay, so this storage and lifecycle, this is not bad. I'm not sure this was in the guide provided by the other ChatGPT, but this definitely fits into the way the system currently works. Good, okay. It realized we don't use mutexes because those can be poisoned. The model for critical elements in the system is a channel-based serialized writer and synchronous read. So far, this is good. We are missing tags. I don't know if we want to add tags. Right, we want to add tags. Okay, so we are missing tags in a sense that on the admin side, we will want to use tags, and on the public side, we won't. We are anticipating these queries as we haven't discussed how we integrate it to the rest of the system. But I would like you to include verbiage that we will need to store the tags, and we will have two different queries, one that includes tags and one that doesn't. Okay, yep, definitely. To be reviewed, right? Okay, so let's look at this. So schema, title, tags, correct. Right, okay. Now, before I forget, this is important, it's a digression, but right now we don't store the roles in the ROL file. We only store the roles, we only store the pre-calculated roles in the memory cache. So we need to reflect this. Please add that when we are ingesting files which have tags, then we want to ensure that the calculated roles based on the tags and their union and intersect settings are passed on because roles are not stored in the ROL files. So those will need to be added at ingest time using our existing tag to role algorithms. Now, tags, public dash RBAC, these are all feature documents, so they have fairly targeted scopes. So it's easy for the AI to read those as well and then incorporate what we just said. So let's see. I wish it didn't give such a long explanation every time. Let's just look at the current output. So roles, multi-valued RBAC tokens used for query time authorization filtering, computed at ingest time from tags using existing tag role resolution rules. Perfect. Yes, that's fine. Okay, so admin query with tags. Very good. Okay. Now this is interesting. So full content access is resolved from source files only after authorization. I wonder. Okay, let's continue. Okay, so it's going into memory budgets. We will need to make that a configuration. Good. Okay, so this is starting to look good. Now let's go back here and say, please add a new configuration section for search. And for now, we will need to be able to configure the maximum memory used by the Tantivi search subsystem. It's not with an I, it's with a Y. Okay, so let's look at this now. I want to understand what this means. What does this mean? Okay, so that's reassuring. And so this is an interesting point, and one reason why I want AI to write this and not me is that AI seems to be really good at telling itself what to do. And again, when it's thinking, it's really just talking to itself. And so we are exposing this, and you know, I don't know. I don't know if this is what I would have understood, but this is the right understanding. So that's great. Now let's look at the other piece, ingestion. Okay, so this is important. We want to strip Markdown and HTML, right? Because Markdown can include HTML. Oh, and it's including these other formats, right? Right, so we need this changed. Okay, so we need to make a couple of changes to the ingestion Caravaggio. The first is that for now, we will only allow Markdown documents. And this will be enforced at the higher level. So we will insert the search, create, update step into our existing document update process. And if and only if the document is a Markdown page, then we will run the search upsert. Keep in the documentation that we will eventually support other documentation types, but those are for later releases and out of scope at the moment. Now, I would like to also clarify where this will fit into the update process. My expectation is that the search will only be applied when the document has already been saved together with its sidecar file. I would also like to reuse any in-memory elements that we would have already accumulated about this file so that we don't do any memory copies or rereads from disk. This also means that the mutation semantics should be enhanced in the ingest Caravaggio to reflect that all the fields and the document contents, the body, will be supplied. So what I would like you to do is review the data structures that the system will have after a markdown page save, and how can we reuse those for the upsert. Again, and this is why it's so important to document things, because this is a valid requirement, right? But this is wrong, because this will just very likely replicate the whole thing, because we have been talking about files, right? So in a sense, it will think that it will have to read the ROL file and it will have to read the actual data file. But we don't want that, because we have already got that in memory. This sort of connections the LLMs don't make. Maybe 5.3 would, although I don't see any sign of it. So not much intelligence there, but we can tell it to do it properly. Let's have a look at what has changed so far. Very good. So that's inserted. That's fine. Those are the new files. Configuration, yes. Okay, so this felt quick at the beginning. Maybe it is, I don't know. Now we are back to regular speed on ChatGPT. All right, so in-memory sidecar plus body. Yes, that's what we want to reuse. Right, so if it's a large file, it's going to be... Right, so if it's streamed, then we don't have it actually in memory. Okay, let's see. How are we handling this? Right, so non-markdown out of scope. Very good. Okay, so this is important. I would like to make sure that the persist, markdown, and sidecar, and then cache invalidation, release tracking really goes quickly as now, and the search upsert request goes in parallel. So it should not be on the same thread. It should be offloaded to a worker thread. Okay, so one more point is that if the document content is already in memory, then we should use it. I, however, don't want to change how the streaming upload and save works. In that case, if the data is not in memory, then the search worker should load the data from disk. Not ideal, but I don't want to disrupt the existing code. By the way, I'm thinking here that eventually would anyway be how we would index a PDF, that we have to reread it and interpret it. And I definitely want that on a background thread. I'm glad that it likes its work. Right, so I think that there is one bit that we need to consider, which is changes to a file that has not been indexed yet. How would we be able to handle a situation where before the search ingest is completed, there is a change to that object? The unfortunate situation is that we have the capability for content versioning, but it has not been implemented. Let me then reformulate the question so that if we get an update and therefore we get multiple requests in queue for the same object, and it's executed multiple times for that reason, do we see any issues with that, or we are just wasting resources? Yes, we have a capability to version content in no pressure, but it was not implemented to actually work for now. It's on the list though. That's interesting. Okay, so the IDs are unique. If they are deleted, then they will just not be reused. So there is no possibility of use after free, so to say. That should not be an issue. I would expect the queue to be FIFO, so the older should not be run after the newer, correct? Okay, so here is what I would like to do. I would like to add a configurable worker number defaulting to 1. Each worker will have the ID it's working on, and no other worker can take an item out of the queue that has the same ID. What is the retries and requeues point? What would cause that? I don't think we have any sort of retry mechanism. Not requeues, Well, okay, so actually this is a good point. What happens if we fail with the search indexing? I don't think that search is a highly critical mechanism, so for now we will definitely only have a logon error. In fact, we can use partitioning, and there is no need to use a hash because the ID is already just a 64-bit number. The second point is that we won't do retries, we will log the failures. I would also like to have a disk persisted list of failed IDs. This will be made available on the admin side when the content list is displayed. We won't define it just now how that part works, but it should be a very simple queue-based writer, synchronous reader, full in-memory cache of the list but persisted to disk as a simple file which we will call YAML, but of course it will just be a list of IDs. All right, okay, so this looks good. Where does the Tantivi module store its index files? I should probably add this to the dictionary. Right, so yes, we want to have it under state/sys/search. And then in this directory, we can keep the failed IDs, and we can also have the index subdirectory. All right, before anything horrible happens, let's just log this in. We move on to action planning. I would like to keep a single action plan in the search.md, and the action plan in search-ingest.md should refer to that action plan. Please create the action plan that would create the scope that we have described in the technical details in these two documents. I would like it to be phased such that at the end of each phase there will be a testable new scope delivered and the corresponding tests created. Those tests must pass, and also the existing cargo tests should also pass. Okay, so what I'm seeing here that it's trying to already anticipate the integration to the UI. Let's see what comes out of that. All right, so now let's have a look. So this should only have that. Yeah, okay. So that's good. Now let's look at this. All right, so very good. That's fine. Okay, so I think this whole thing we will remove. Right, okay, so what we need to review, okay. Please remove phase 4. We will defer that integration into the UI to when we are wiring the search into the UI. Let's please also detail out where and how the search service will be instantiated at startup. Oh, okay, so context has been compacted. And it's rereading these two documents only. And because those are feature documents, it didn't read half the other document set. So brilliant. This is what feature documents are designed for. Okay, so now let's look at this again. I think we are missing one piece, which is the ability to force a complete re-indexing, meaning all the existing index is dropped and the full set of markdown files are enumerated and indexed. And that should be the behavior if there is no index available. Please update both the technical content and the action plan, including test cases where we precede the test environment with a number of markdown files and then the index is generated. And that can be used in test cases where we read the existing index. All right, so what did it do? Okay. One more update, please. I would like to include comprehensive logging. The search service should not generally info log. It should emit warnings when the indexing fails. It should debug log main events like the addition or removal of a file from the index. Actually, there is one info log that I would like to have, which is around startup, rebuilding the index, and a forced reindexing. Those should be info logged, but not file level actions. And then finally, trace level should go in detail, which worker, what file, etc. Those should be available as well. All right. Let's log this in as well. And then let's do a final sweep. I think this is not the right size. Right. Unusually this detailed, so that's way more explicit than what the 5.2 would do, which I actually like. So this is really good. All right, so we need to have the worker count should be limited to 16, and if there is a higher number, it should just be defaulting to 16 with a warning in logs. Let's see if there is anything else. Okay, so that looks good. I think that's the last one. Excellent. All right, please review both files and let me know if there are any open questions or unclear areas. I always ask this because sometimes I miss something, and it's also good at identifying anything that is that would be assumed, which we don't really want. So let's see what it comes back with. Okay, so the forced reindex trigger path, as all other service points, will be wired up later. And will go through the management bus. So you can include a reference that this will be defined and go through the management bus, but for now it just has to be an available internal API endpoint. Regarding the index, if it's missing, then we do full rebuild. It's basically the normal startup. If it's corrupt, meaning that when we are starting up, we are trying to read it and it fails, then that should be a hard stop. So it should be something what we already have, for example, for unknown files in the NOP directory. So it should be a hard stop with an immediate flagging to the user without forking. Now, this I would like to make as efficient as possible. So give me options how to make this check. So that answers also point 4. We just fail if there is a bad index. If we fail during index startup, we emit the warnings as usual, but that should not result in a corrupted index. It should result in an incomplete index. Okay, so number 5, this should only be called for markdown files. This should be in the documentation, but as we are not wiring up the actual requests from the management bus, we don't need to elaborate more. When we do a full rebuild, the failed ID file should be deleted. We start afresh. Okay, so now there was this one, which is the worker count. In terms of the first question, the configuration question, we already have configuration validation which logs and fails, I believe. So validate that. And we should just replicate that behavior. If you still have concerns, let me know. Right, so what I want to do now, and it's sometimes difficult because it just wants to link up everything, is that we are not linking it up yet. I just want the subsystem to work and test it, and then we can move up to the higher levels. Because if we expand the scope and suddenly drag in the management bus and the content pipeline, it becomes too much. By the way, we also need to have a new endpoint for the public user facing part. Okay, so yeah, I don't think we need to overdo the checks. Please explain the schema fingerprint. Is that literally a hash check? Where does this hash come from? Is this something that the module will have to continuously generate? Where would it be stored? I have a sense that this might be a little bit... It sounds good, but maybe too good to be true. Okay, so what we are saying here is that we are trying to protect against schema change. Well, this is an interesting question. I don't think we need to implement this at this point because the schema is probably not going to change much. We might eventually add a file type, maybe, but it kind of defeats the purpose of the search, which should be global. So in that sense, I don't think that we will change the schema. And if we will, then we can incorporate the schema change detection. So we will not have that. Okay, we will go for the first option you proposed, the open plus reader worm. We will not do schema detection or anything like that. If we change the schema, we will take care of it then. Oops. I just realized that this is reader worm. Okay, so that's definitely not what I intended to dictate. Okay, and just to confirm, that index reader and searcher and all that is not just for that particular check, but it survives and then used by the system, correct? Excellent. All right. Please move both Caravaggios into requirement stage. All right, so that's us. Are you able to begin implementation in this session, or should I start a new one? Please execute. Continue as you progress through the phases. At the end of each phase, please create a commit with the phase number and the achievement. Complete all phases. Okay, so first time with 5.3. My first impression is that I actually don't feel it very much different from 5.2, and I count it as a plus. Let's see what comes out of this. All right, we are back after about 40 minutes. And I needed to do one correction mid-flight, which was that it was going to use version 0.22. Now, these are the nuances, of course, that the LLM itself, the brain, might remember 0.22 as the last version, but the reality is that since it's data cutoff, it's 0.25. So we get this weird final message. But let's check what's the status. Please give me a status update for the implementation of the phases to deliver the search capability. One point to note here is that the context is very empty. So I'm guessing that right before this message up here, there was context window compaction, and therefore the history was, yes, here we go, there was the context compacted. And so that means that it's currently not remembering what it has done. So let's see how we conclude on this. Please finish. Not bad so far. Now what we have to do now is to wire this actually into the rest of the system. We have to make sure that we can trigger a full rescan. We have to add the front-end part. And actually for the front-end part, the user experience I would like to have is that if the user just starts typing, it should just be interpreted as the user is trying to search. In fact, I think that that is probably the direction we want to go. And the model I have in mind is kind of the ship's computer of the USS Enterprise NCC 1701D, where you can talk to the computer. So the default action is that if you see a website, then you can just talk to it and ask questions to the website, which is basically artificial intelligence responding. All right, let's jump back here. Okay, so it has done the final commit. We pushed those into the repository. Very good. Okay, so now we need to continue. Are there any outstanding actions for the search ingestion Caravaggio? If not, let's please move it to develop state. I meant developed, but I hope it's intelligent enough. Yes. Now, I'm considering in the meantime how to do this. In terms of the integration, I want to start with the user side. And as we probably have a very long video, what I might do is have a third video in the series, which is focusing on the management and administration side. But let's just get to the stage where you can actually search. So let's just look at the content pipeline documentation first and see how we want to bring the search part and the content pipeline part together. I would like to now work out how to integrate search into the content pipeline and the user experience on the front end. What I'm thinking is that the user can just start typing when the a web page is open, and that is interpreted that the user is starting a search query. There should also be a search button which opens a search overlay. So this overlay should be in the middle of the screen with larger font, an entry field, and it should then display the type ahead search results at least after the user has typed 3 or more characters. Now, I would like you to review the codebase and the content pipeline documentation, because I understand that we do not have a JavaScript framework in the front end at the moment. And I want to evaluate what's the best way to build this capability. Is it something that we need a framework for, or can we implement it into our site JavaScript library? Having said that, I want to keep to writing the code in TypeScript and then compiling it to JavaScript. So please, no documentation or code changes for now. I want to brainstorm first how to best implement this. While it's thinking, I will just commit this as just done. Just a quick note here is that we have the site package in TypeScript, which is being compiled into JavaScript at build time. And then this site library is actually built into the executable so that it's served from the executable itself. And so it's looking at the build and release and the full cycle. All right, so it says it can do it. Well, let's see. Okay, perfect. Okay, so a couple of things here that we will just have /API//search. This is public only, and the administration works through the WebSocket, so we don't need to differentiate the two. We will not return the URL because the alias is the URL if available, and the ID is also enough to identify the object. Okay, so I was going to say I want up, down, and enter. Perfect. It got it. Excellent. Which Caravaggio document describes the front-end module, the other components and modules of it? Right, so what I want to make sure is that we are not starting to dilute the focus of each feature document. Please explain what public site behavior and current JS integration points are covered in the content model document. Right, so it's way too big. We definitely don't want to add to it. All right, so we will do the split like this, that I would like to have the a new search-ux.md under content, which will cover both the backend API endpoint as well as the front-end JavaScript TypeScript module. We will keep in the search infrastructure document only the infrastructure part. So I don't want to have any UX related elements in there. Now, on that basis, do we have everything defined in the search.md that Caravaggio can be moved to developed state? Okay, so in the current implementation, the interface that allows searching, does that provide the proper differentiation between the public-facing query, which is RBAC based, and the administration side, which is full access with tags? That's not the question. The question is that in the search module, what is the way to query the index? Right, okay, so that's a problem. Although we did have the technical details how to do this, we did not get it. Right, so that means that the technical requirements were not implemented to the full extent. I would like you to clean up the action plan and update it so that the query side is also implemented, not just the upsert and the reindexing. Give me this update in the search document first. I want to be clear that at the infrastructure level, this is a requirement that there should be a public and an admin search capability. This should not be exposed in any other way than in the module itself so that other modules can take advantage of it. But it was a requirement. Therefore, there was no reason to move it to another one. It should have been implemented in this scope. So please make the action plan update now. Right, and is it clear that we need to implement this and we will then wire this into both the public side on the one hand and the admin side on the other? Also, are there any open questions? Yes, admin includes everything. There is no RBAC. Your question of applying RBAC on an admin query is meaningless given it's an admin query with an admin role. Public role input contract is correct. I think that in terms of sorting, we can use the title, so at least it's alphabetic. We will not display the ID, by the way. I think we will just have an inherent limit of 16. That should not be provided anywhere. That's just the limit that the query underscore public contract will allow. We might change this later, but for now it's a hard encoded limit. The query parser will just use plain text, no operators. Okay, so now I have two options, either to proceed with just this one or define the public side now, but I will just get this done now and then move on to the public side. So please execute. Okay, we are back again with the queries hopefully implemented. So let's just check. Please confirm that if the user has no roles, it will not break the public request. It will correctly return all publicly available documents that match the search query. All right, so let's save those in Git, and then what we are going to do now is to move on to the public front end. I would like to create the search.ux.md Caravaggio document in the content subdirectory. It should describe the technical expectations we have discussed previously. Please create the document. I don't know if it remembers what we have discussed earlier. Let's see what it remembers. All right, now this is interesting. So let's go to content and let's look at this. Oh, it remembers that it should put an action plan later on. Okay, it remembers the API path, very good. Okay, so far so good. This looks pretty much what we expect. Please remove the admin flow related references except for mentioning they are out of scope for this document. Please include details about debouncing, and I would also like to understand how light-dark theme changes will be affecting the overlay. Okay, I'm curious about the theme. It's a funny thing, right? Because it is such a minor detail, but it's so defining when you are actually using any system. Can we please include specifically which theme variables will be used to format the overlay? I would like to have more details about that. There should be a background that shades, perhaps even blurs the underlying page, and then clarity around what will be the border, text, background, etc. colors, both for the input and for the dynamic list showing the entries. I'm not sure I have seen it, but we do want up, down, enter, escape support as well. Okay, so this looks like it's reusing the existing colors, which is good. That means that it's going to fit into the page, whatever is the page theme. Okay, so this looks good. To confirm, all the colors and theme elements are coming from existing theme colors and variables, no new ones added. The other one is that for the keyboard contract, if the user continues typing, regular characters, then those should be added to the search, and then the selection should be cleared. On mobile, the user has to use the search button. By the way, that's important that we should never include that in the hamburger menu. In mobile view, it should always be visible. And it should just be an icon of a magnifying glass. Where will we get that? Is that going to be Unicode character? Good, I am happy with the SVG option. Are there any open questions? I am not sure we will cut off passive typing. It's just that the user is not able to do it. So if the user connects a keyboard and starts typing on a phone, or certainly an iPad, I have no problem with that. So there is no mobile cutoff. It's just, it's available all the time. I am not sure we have any input or text area or content editable, but yes, we should have the passive typing guard like that. Good question. Do we want wraparound or clamping at the first last rows? Let's do wraparound. It's more fun. Let's do wraparound for the navigation edge. Overlay, accessibility, behavior correct, focus trap, and body scroll lock. In terms of error and empty, let's keep it simple. So no results, and also let's please add error logging in the console. All right, so that means we have the feature document for this. Let's just do a quick overview. So now we need the action plan. Right. Please create a two-phased action plan. First phase, develop the new API endpoint with all tests, and second, build the front-end part. Now, in the front-end part, I would also like to have proper end-to-end tests, not just integration tests. Right, so let's look at this. Well, actually, just one note that if the query string is less than 3 characters, then it should not return or display no results, but just not display anything. Good. Please execute the plan. I'm really curious whether we got a working search capability. Let's see in a bit. Okay, we are back. It looks like it's finished, but it's actually not. It didn't really work, although all these green ticks are green. So let's get ChatGPT to clean up the mess. I would like you to significantly review the tests and their scope, because in reality, the search doesn't work at all. Here is the log message. Okay, and in a critical moment, the context was compacted. So again, we will have to see how well the AI can cope with the loss of context. Okay, we are back again. This time it works, and there are only minor glitches to figure out. So I will put those through, and then with that I will close this process so that we have an extremely long but still possibly watchable length video. And then I will pick up the final part, which is integrating into the administration UI, in another video. Let's please move the button, which is currently left in the toolbar, navigation bar actually, to the right. It should be left of the drop down for the profile and right of the edit button. And of course, if neither are present, it just should be the right aligned single button. The other is that when we have the user using the up and down keys, then the mouse, if it's not being moved, should not interfere with the focus highlight. So the user can either move the mouse or use the up and down keys, and if the mouse is not being used, then it should not reset the focus to the item that is under incidentally of the mouse cursor. All right, I will stop here, and the next step will be to add search to the administration side as well. That's the first run at creating the search capability in No Pressure. What did we achieve? We added the Tantivy library to No Pressure and integrated the ingest into the page update flow. We added, after the AI missed it, the query side as well, so that both admin and public side will be able to actually search the documents. And indeed, we added the public side UX, where the users can simply start typing to search or click on the search icon to open the search overlay. And it actually works. Now, I would not consider this done by any means, and we will do validation in the next video. But we did make good progress. The whole process took about 3.5 hours in real time, of which there was about an hour worth of direct interaction with the AI. And we got about 6,000 lines of Rust code, and a pretty useful new capability in No Pressure. If you found this process useful, then please like this video and subscribe to get a notification when the new video with the last bit is posted. I will spend some time explaining what the management side of the system looks like, so that it's clear how the search will integrate into that part. For now, thanks for watching, and see you on the next video.
Please like and subscribe. Your support helps us continue our adventures across the galaxy.